Along with the voice, the space in the surroundings warped strangely once more. This time, Xianxia's face turned icy cold. He hadn't come here with the desire to cause trouble, but they refused to let him stay out of trouble. He didn't know why the void world was acting against him, but it wasn't important anymore. Xianxia's blood suddenly started surging, and then strands of powerful energy ceaselessly rippled out of him. Bloodline energy. Meanwhile, Xianxia's sword stabbed forward. The sword domain. The domain sword. The entire world around them shook as if it had been struck by a sledgehammer. A moment later, the entire world turned ethereal before collapsing inch by inch. This time, the collapse was unlike before. The essence of the area had collapsed as well. Every formation, barrier, and even illusion couldn't endure destruction from absolute strength. Now, Xianxia's attack had fully surpassed the limits of this world, destroyed by a single attack. A few breaths of time later, the surroundings returned to calm once more. At this moment, Xiangyi and Blood Maiden had left the area they'd been in. Presently, they were in the void world. The previous world around them had been an ethereal one, and they were in the real world now. Xiangyi glanced at the surroundings. "Show yourself." He received no answer. Suddenly, rays of sword intent and sword energy swept out from Xiangyi, and they rippled toward the surroundings. If Xiangyi did as he pleased at his level of strength, it would be a calamity to any world. Even Eternal Kingdom couldn't endure his strength. And the void world wasn't even a high-level world. It didn't take long for a wave of powerful energy to appear in the surroundings. Along with its arrival, Xiangyi's sword intent and sword energy were forced to a stop. But that wasn't the end of it. The mysterious energy enveloped Xiangyi and Blood Maiden, causing the sword intent and sword energy to be pushed back toward them. Meanwhile, Executor suddenly slashed forward. Hiss! Space was sliced open like a piece of paper. Suddenly, a pitch-black chain appeared around Executor, and then it tightened itself around Executor. At the same time, a middle-aged man in a black cloak appeared near Xiangyi. Xiangyi frowned upon seeing this person because the latter wasn't at the Destiny realm. He wasn't the Void Lord. Xiangyi didn't think too much about it and just waved his hand. Executor shook violently, and then it struggled free of the chains and returned to him. Xiangyi gazed at the man. "Is there no room for negotiation?" The mysterious man with the cloak said, "You have two choices. Firstly, fuck off right now. Secondly, die here. Right, the void world is an ally of Eternal Kingdom. Understand?" Xiangyi nodded. "I didn't quite understand earlier, but I do now. An ally, huh? The friend of my enemy is my enemy. Since we're enemies, I understand even better now." Xiangyi suddenly vanished on the spot. At practically the exact same moment, the mysterious man vanished on the spot too. A moment later, Xiangyi arrived around 3 m before the mysterious man, and the latter's pupils instantly constricted upon seeing Xiangyi before him. Danger! It was his first reaction, and his instinct was to create distance with Xiangyi. However, it was too late. Hiss! Along with the sound of something being sliced open, a figure was blasted away. It was Xiangyi's figure. Xiangyi flew over 300 m before he finally stopped. There was a pitch-black chain that had pierced his chest. However, it wasn't a lethal injury. Meanwhile, the mysterious figure had lost his head. Xiangyi had taken an injury in exchange for taking his opponent's life. Blood Maiden took a deep and long glance at Xiangyi while solemnness filled her eyes. She noticed that Xiangyi's ability in close-quarters combat was extremely terrifying. Could be said that his strength was unparalleled in close quarters. At that moment, Xiangyi was like a peerless and invincible sword cultivator. Xiangyi sliced the chain into countless pieces with a quick swing of his sword. So long as it wasn't a super-divine treasure, Executor could destroy it with absolute ease. Xiangyi gazed at Blood Maiden. "Second sister, let's go," Blood Maiden asked without thinking. "Where are we going?" Xiangyi smiled. "To look for eldest sister, of course. If we can't find her today, we'll destroy this place." Blood Maiden rolled her eyes at him. "We're here to look for her, not to fight." So be reasonable. Understand. Yang Yi was stunned. Second sister. Has someone seized control of your body? Bam! She struck his head hard. Of course, Yang Yi didn't dare to fight back and hurriedly admitted his mistakes. No matter how strong he became, there were people who he felt he had to respect forever, and he sincerely respected them. It didn't take long for them to continue forward. There were many obscure auras in the surroundings that were following them, but Yang Yi didn't attack them. According to Blood Maiden, there was a teleportation formation into the void space at a floating palace at the end of the mountain range. That was their destination. A short while later, the floating palace appeared within their fields of vision. It was a grand palace made of unknown golden stone, and it emanated an invisible wave of pressure that felt extremely heavy. Yang Yi released his sword intent, and the pressure instantly vanished. Yang Yi led Blood Maiden through the air toward the palace, and it didn't take long for them to arrive at the palace's entrance. An ethereal figure stood not too far before them. It was shaped like a person and held a pitch-black cane. The figure said, "Sect Master Yi, there's no enmity between you and my void world. Yet you've trespassed and killed residents of my void world. Aren't you a little too overbearing?" Yang Yi smiled. "What? You plan to reason with me now?" The figure replied indifferently, "Everything requires reason. Sect Master Yi, you?" Suddenly, Yang Yi shook his head. "Sorry, I don't want to reason with you now. When I tried to give you face, you didn't cherish it. Now I will do the same. Right now, there are only two paths left before us. Firstly, let us into the void space, and we'll leave once we find the person we're looking for. Secondly, I'll kill all of you and head inside." The figure fell silent for a short while and said, "They said you're extremely overbearing. Now, we've seen it for ourselves. If you wish to go inside, then do so. However, let me warn you, don't blame us if you fail to come out safely." Yang Yi smiled. "I won't. Don't worry. If you play some tricks and get me killed, nothing will happen to you. Right? My big sis who's backing me said that I must deal with everything myself. If I die, she will just bury me, and she won't avenge me. I'm serious, so you can rest at ease." Blood Maiden rolled her eyes at Yang Yi because Yang Yi was growing increasingly cunning. The figure replied indifferently, "There's no need to emphasize on the extraordinary expert who backs you. Don't worry, we won't play any tricks. However, the void space is dangerous on its own. So, don't blame us if you die there." Yang Yi smiled. "Don't worry, I won't." He walked toward the palace with Blood Maiden. Meanwhile, the figure didn't try to stop them. The ethereal figure really didn't dare to. If he tried to stop Yang Yi, he would have to fight Yang Yi. But besides the Supreme Void Lord, no one else in the Void World could kill Yang Yi. But the Supreme Void Lord was afraid of the mysterious young girl who was backing Yang Yi. Moreover, while the Void World had taken the Eternal Kingdom's side, they were absolutely unwilling to be the Eternal Kingdom's vanguard and fight Yang Yi to the death. Simply speaking, no one wanted to offend someone like Yang Yi at a time like this. Even the Eternal Lord and the Soul Master didn't want to take the initiative to act against him. Now, it was great so long as he didn't cause trouble for them. The figure sighed softly, and the sigh carried some unwillingness and a trace of anger. Allowing Yang Yi to enter was definitely a humiliation for the Void World. Suddenly, a voice resounded in the figure's mind. "If the heavens desires its death, the heavens make it go mad first. Don't worry about it. It won't be long before the expert that backs him will vanish from this world. At that time, it will take but a moment to kill him." The figure's displeasure immediately vanished. Once they entered the palace, Yang Yi and Blood Maiden used the teleportation platform to enter the boundless void space again. This time, it was the real void space. Yang Yi gazed at Blood Maiden. "Second sister, do you have any way to find eldest sister or contact her?" Blood Maiden fell silent for a short while and shook her head. "No, I can't sense her presence anymore." Yang Yi frowned slightly and glanced at the surroundings. "I'm afraid that we'll only be wasting time by searching each and every space here." Blood Maiden gazed at Yang Yi. "Do you have an idea?" Yang Yi nodded. "I kind of have one. He looked up at the sky and grinned. The living beings in here know this place much better than us. It'll be much easier if they're willing to help us. Blood Maiden shook her head. Do you think they will help us? Xianxia smiled. If they refuse to help, then I won't leave. Right, I'm going to train with my sword. I'm going to have a good training session here. Training with the sword. Xianxia did as he said. It didn't take long for him to start training with his sword in this endless expanse of space. While it was called training, he was actually just destroying. Xianxia's powerful sword energy and sword intent rippled madly through the entire area. After he found out that the Void World was allied with Eternal Kingdom, he had no intention to be reasonable anymore. Because these powers and experts would never reason with him when they had the strength to crush him. They would only reason with him when he had the strength to crush them. Powerful sword intent and sword energy madly destroyed the world here. And it didn't take long for even the Void World to be affected. The living beings throughout the Void World couldn't remain calm anymore. A short while later, the ethereal figure from before appeared in front of Xianxia. At this moment, the figure was emanating powerful ripples of aura. Obviously, the ethereal figure was furious. The figure spoke ferociously. Xianxia, don't go too far. Xianxia replied indifferently. What's your problem if I'm training with my sword? Meanwhile, a powerful aura suddenly enveloped Xianxia. But it only took a moment for the aura to be obliterated by Xianxia's sword intent. Xianxia glanced at the ethereal figure. Do you want to train with me? The ethereal figure spoke solemnly. Xianxia, do you really think my void world is helpless against you? Xianxia chuckled. I'm a direct person, so I don't like to beat around the bush. I want to find my eldest sister, but this place is too huge, so I can't find her. I'm sure you get what I mean. The ethereal figure replied coldly. That's none of my damn business. We're not the ones who lost her. Xianxia's face turned icy cold. I don't care. If you don't help, then I won't leave until I find her. Xianxia. The figure was slightly hysterical. Do you think we're fun to bully? And you can just trample upon us? Xianxia raised his sword slowly and pointed it at the ethereal figure. I'm telling you right now, I'm going to be unreasonable today. So, tell me, are you going to help or not? Blood Maiden glanced at Xianxia and remained silent. As for the ethereal figure, he was trembling with rage. Xianxia was going too far. When had the void world ever been humiliated like this throughout the countless years of the past? The ethereal figure couldn't endure it, so the space around Xianxia suddenly cracked open. A moment later, countless strands of hair-thin black energy seeped out from space and formed a net that immediately enveloped Xianxia. Corrosion. At this moment, Xianxia's clothes and body were actually starting to be corroded. Even if he had the primordial violet energy to heal him, it couldn't stop the corrosion. Xianxia didn't dare act carelessly and swung his sword, the domain sword. At this moment, Executor seemed capable of slicing open the world. As soon as it descended, the black net around Xianxia vanished without a trace, and then a ray of sword energy flashed. A moment later, Xianxia appeared where the figure had been. Meanwhile, the figure appeared over 1 kilometer away. The ethereal figure stared at Xianxia with vigilance and solemnness. Xianxia's ability in close-quarter combat was something he'd witnessed with his own eyes. Once Xianxia was allowed to get close, it would absolutely mean death. So, as soon as Xianxia attacked, he'd immediately retreated and created space between them. Once Xianxia got close to him, he would be crippled even if he could escape death. Xianxia glanced at the figure, and then a flying sword shot forward. The figure was shocked and waved the cane lightly. Hiss! The space before him cracked open, and Xianxia's flying sword entered the crack. A short while later, the crack closed. However, the space there shook violently. Boom! A moment of silence ensued, and then a sword howl resounded before the space there exploded open. A flying sword flashed out of the spatial rift. Meanwhile, the ethereal figure tapped his cane forward. It tapped directly against the tip of Xianxia's sword. Bang! Xianxia's flying sword was blasted away. Xianxia suddenly vanished on the spot. and he was before the figure when he appeared once more. However, Yang Yi hadn't even swung his sword when the figure moved 300 m away and created distance between them. Yang Ye's eyes narrowed slightly. He tapped his right foot down and transformed into a ray of light that shot forward. The ethereal figure tapped his cane forward. Hiss! Countless threads of black energy appeared and formed a thick shield. However, along with the descent of Yang Ye's sword, the thick shield was obliterated. But Yang Yi frowned once more because the ethereal figure had gone around 3 kilometers back. Yang Yi didn't have much of an advantage when it came to speed. So, if the ethereal figure kept avoiding a direct confrontation, then Yang Yi was quite helpless against him. The ethereal figure stared at Yang Yi, and the solemnness in his eyes had turned to fear. Yang Ye's combat strength was already capable of killing Peak Lord Realm experts with ease. But that wasn't even the end of it. Yang Yi had an extremely sharp super divine treasure. Possessing Executor was like giving wings to a ferocious tiger. So most Lord Realm experts were no match for Yang Yi. It could be said that there were probably less than a handful in the universe who were capable of rivaling Yang Yi in the same realm of cultivation. Yang Yi walked slowly in the figure's direction. I don't want to waste time, so I'll ask you one last time. Are you going to help me or not? The figure stared at Yang Yi. At this moment, the sword intent and sword energy around Yang Yi had vanished. But he was even more terrifying now. The figure spoke ferociously. Yang Yi, don't you dare insult us. My void world will never spare you. Suddenly, Yang Yi vanished on the spot. Hiss! The space here exploded apart inch by inch. It had been sliced open by a sword. The figure's pupils constricted. At this moment he sensed death. Meanwhile, Yang Yi appeared before him. They were no more than 3 m away from each other. Yang Yi swung his sword. It was absolutely fast. At this moment, Yang Yi seemed more like an assassin than a sword cultivator. The ethereal figure hadn't chosen to stay away because Yang Yi had used the sword domain to forcefully suppress the space he resided in. So, his speed was reduced beneath the sword domain, and that allowed Yang Yi to instantly appear before him. Now it was too late for him to flee. Yang Ye's sword shot forward, but the tip of it stopped right before the ethereal figure's throat. Blood Maiden frowned, and a blood-red mist condensed around her. The ethereal figure soundlessly vanished before Yang Yi, and then Yang Yi lowered his sword. Meanwhile, a pitch-black teleportation formation appeared before Yang Yi. At the same time, a voice resounded, "Get inside!" Yang Yi glanced at the surroundings. "Thank you." Yang Yi led Blood Maiden into the teleportation formation. It didn't take long for them to vanish in the teleportation formation. Meanwhile, the ethereal figure appeared here once more, and he spoke solemnly. "My lord, he insulted our void world to such an extent. I can't let it go." The voice suddenly asked, "Can you defeat him?" The figure was stunned, and then quite an unsightly expression appeared on his face. The voice asked another question. "He's practically invincible beneath the Destiny realm. If I don't help, he can slaughter the entire void world." The ethereal figure spoke solemnly. "Then why do you not take action, my lord?" The voice offered no reply. Many weren't aware of what had happened in the origin world, but experts of their level were aware of everything. Yang Ye's ability to instantly kill Lord Realm experts wasn't a huge deal. If he took action, he was 99% confident in being able to kill Yang Yi. He was truly afraid about the young girl who was backing Yang Yi, the young girl who could instantly kill Destiny Realm experts. After all, even the master of the Divine Abode was that weak before her, and she'd even been on the verge of destroying the bridge on her own. However, the powers in that world, including the Sky Palace, didn't dare to say a word about it. Moreover, they even dealt with the other power that had offended her so that she would be appeased. He could kill Yang Yi, but he didn't dare to. He wasn't the only one. The other top experts of Eternal Kingdom didn't dare to either. It should be said that none of them dared to take action against Yang Yi before the latter attained the Destiny Realm. Because once they did that, they couldn't bear the consequences of it. Yang Yi and Blood Maiden appeared in a boundless expanse of space, and the world here was trembling violently. Yang Yi and Blood Maiden exchanged glances. Meanwhile, the world around them actually started to turn ethereal. It's being devoured. Blood Maiden spoke solemnly. Its eldest sister. She's devouring this world. Yang Yi glanced at the surroundings, but he couldn't find a trace of Sky Maiden. Suddenly, the entire world started to turn ethereal. Or it should be said that the energy of this void planet was vanishing rapidly. Yang Yi became quite vigilant. Or it should be said, there was quite a solemn expression on his face. He sensed danger. Meanwhile, the entire void planet was growing increasingly translucent. Yang Yi spoke solemnly. This is bad. This place is about to vanish. Yang Yi hurriedly unleashed the sword domain, and it enveloped both him and Blood Maiden. Just like that, they watched with astonishment as the world outside the sword domain started to vanish. Bit by bit, it was truly vanishing. Yang Yi had an extremely solemn expression on his face. Sky Maiden was devouring this world. How was she accomplishing this? After all, devouring and destruction was different. They were two completely different things. Meanwhile, Blood Maiden suddenly looked up. She isn't here. Yang Yi was about to speak, but his expression suddenly changed. The mysterious devouring energy had actually started to devour his sword domain. Devouring the sword domain. Yang Yi was astounded because if his sword domain was devoured, he would suffer extremely severe damage as well. Yang Yi didn't dare act carelessly and hurriedly unleashed his sword intent and sword energy to resist the devouring force. However, it didn't do much. The devouring force still remained. Moreover, his sword energy and sword intent were being gradually devoured as well. Blood Maiden frowned slightly. And then Yang Ye's sword domain transformed into an ocean of blood. The blood domain. Two overlapped domains. Now that Blood Maiden had joined in, the devouring force was instantly obstructed. Both Yang Yi and Blood Maiden heaved sighs of relief from the sight of this. The devouring force was too terrifying. If it got close to them, both of them would probably be finished. Just like that, everything beyond their domains was devoured, and they were extremely shocked by this. Devoured. By devouring this void planet, Sky Maiden could absorb the energy she wanted. In other words, the more she devoured, the stronger she would be. Just thinking about it made their faces gradually relax. Sky Maiden gaining strength was naturally a good thing for them. Of course, their main objective was still to locate her first. Yang Yi gazed at Blood Maiden, and the latter nodded and closed her eyes. A short while later, the space around them rippled, and then she opened her eyes. She grabbed Yang Yi by the shoulder, and they vanished on the spot. A long time passed before they stopped again. At this moment, they were in a boundless expanse of space, and they saw a woman at the depths of it. Sky Maiden. They were delighted by the sight of her and hurriedly flew over. However, they hadn't even gotten within 300 m of her before a wave of powerful devouring force swept toward them. Yang Yi and Blood Maiden were shocked and hurriedly moved around 1 kilometer back. Once they retreated, the energy returned to Sky Maiden. They couldn't get close. Yang Yi and Blood Maiden exchanged glances, and then Yang Yi asked, "Second sister, something seems to be off." Blood Maiden nodded. She looked off into the distance, and Sky Maiden remained motionless there. However, there were countless strands of energy surging toward her from all directions. Obviously, it was the energy from the void planets that she'd devoured. Yang Yi asked, "Can you contact her?" Blood Maiden hesitated for a moment and said, "Let me try." She closed her eyes slowly, and it didn't take long for spatial ripples to ripple out towards Sky Maiden. However, these ripples were completely devoured before they could arrive within 300 m of her. Blood Maiden gazed at Yang Yi and shook her head. Yang Yi looked up at Sky Maiden and spoke solemnly. "Her consciousness may not be here right now. Looks like we have no choice but to wait for her." Blood Maiden nodded. It was all they could do right now. Trying to use force wouldn't be beneficial to anyone. So, they could only wait until Sky Maiden regained consciousness. Blood Maiden spoke softly by Yang Ye's side. "Big Sister's strength is probably going to become unfathomable after this. Yang Yi nodded. Sky Maiden's devouring ability was too terrifying. She wasn't even at her prime now. Once that happened, she may be able to devour a world with ease. An attack that covered such a huge area was a calamity to any world. It was truly quite heaven-defying. Meanwhile, Blood Maiden added, Eldest sister is devouring the parts of the void space without any restraint, so why doesn't the Void Lord stop her? I think something is off. Yang Yi nodded. He'd thought of that from the beginning. The Void Lord wouldn't allow her to just devour this place without any restraint. After all, it was part of the Void world. Blood Maiden spoke solemnly. Forget that for now. Everything will be clear to us once she regains her consciousness. Wait. They could only wait. Wait until Sky Maiden regained her consciousness. Yang Yi returned to the primordial pagoda and went to Qi Bitian's bamboo house again. There was a table in the house and there were 2 boxes on it. Yang Ye's gaze descended onto the egg. His intuition told him that there was something mysterious and strange about it. However, he'd scanned it many times yet failed to notice anything. In the end, he could only let it go. Yang Yi shook his head and left the house. He saw Lei Lin outside. Since Qi Bitian left, Lei Li had become quite depressed. Because no one was there to play with her anymore. As for Schwer, Bauer and Little Sky, they spent most of their time cultivating. After all, they were all grown up now. In the past, Snowy and Arya had no need for cultivating so they could play all the time with her. But now, those 2 little fellows were gone. Lei Lin looked up at Yang Yi. Big brother. When will Snowy and Arya return? And Big Sis Qi? Yang Yi rubbed her head lightly. They'll be back soon. He'd received word that it won't be long before Snowy and Arya would be back. Even though he didn't want them back at a time like this, since they were coming back, he would allow it. If he were being honest, he missed them both too. Of course, he missed in Nanjing as well. He wondered how strong she was now. Yang Yi couldn't help but smile when he thought of how he would see them soon. The primordial pagoda. Yang Yi issued a command in his heart, and the primordial pagoda appeared before him. Yang Yi smiled. I remember that this pagoda has a few more locked levels. Can you let me in? The primordial pagoda shook slightly, and then Yang Yi sensed them. He vanished on the spot. The primordial pagoda opened the top level for Yang Yi. Obviously, it felt that the previous levels weren't that useful to Yang Yi anymore. Indeed, based on Yang Ye's strength, it had surpassed the strength of all the pagoda's past owners. The top level. Yang Yi arrived before a door. He opened it, and an old man in Taoist robes appeared before him. The Tao progenitor. Yang Yi was stunned. He hadn't expected to see the Tao progenitor here. Of course, it was just a clone. The Tao progenitor grinned. I'm probably gone now, right? Yang Yi bowed slightly and replied, Yes. The Tao progenitor smiled and walked out of the door. He gazed at the world down below and smiled. This world is truly miraculous. Yang Yi listened in silence. The Tao progenitor gazed at Yang Yi and smiled. I envy you a little. I'm jealous that you can see even more worlds and even learn more about them. Yang Yi shook his head. I'm just a little luckier. The Tao progenitor smiled. It's not just due to luck alone. He sized up Yang Yi and continued. Your strength and sword Tao are much, much stronger than they were. Especially your cultivation in the sword Tao. It can be described as being unfathomable. Yang Yi smiled and didn't say anything. The Tao progenitor continued. The thing behind these doors should be extremely useful to you. Perhaps it won't help your strength grow much, but it should be extremely useful to the path you will take in the future. Unfortunately, I only managed to comprehend a little all those years ago. Go on inside. Yang Yi glanced at the Tao progenitor, hesitated for a moment, and spoke softly, Master. The Tao progenitor grinned. I'd like to see this world one last time. Yang Yi bowed to the Tao progenitor and walked through the door. There was only a small table within the room, and on it was a book of scriptures. Yang Yi opened it. The Tao is the Tao, yet not the Tao. Tao is within things, and things are within the Tao. All things are one. The heavens failed to control the grand Tao completely. The one that escaped is both a constant and a variable. The Grand Tao is without shape. It is fate and destiny that guides the heaven Tao's in action. It is a truth. Yang Yi gradually got lost in it. He was shocked. Some of the writing in the book surpassed his knowledge. A long time passed before Yang Yi closed the book and walked out of the room. The Tao progenitor was gone. Completely gone. Yang Yi was stunned, and then he gazed at the book in his grasp. It turned out that the most precious thing in the pagoda was this book. Yang Yi felt quite lost as he read it. It was because he wasn't really able to understand many things within it. Even though he didn't understand them, he felt that the contents of the book were amazing, and the person who wrote the book was definitely extremely formidable. Yang Yi placed the book back on the table. It was safest when left here. Yang Yi walked out of the room and looked up at the sky. The Tao? According to the book, the Tao gave birth to all things and contains all things. The Tao is within things, and things are within the Tao. All things are one. In other words, everything contained the Tao. Even life, age, sickness, death, the laws of all things, everything. Of course, it included his sword Tao. One of the grand Tao escaped the heavens. In other words, the Tao is not perfect. But what does the escaped one represent? The grand Tao is shapeless, and the heaven Tao's in action. What does that mean? Yang Yi was bewildered. A long time passed before he shook his head and left the pagoda. He had no choice but to read through and comprehend it slowly. Time would tell him everything. Or perhaps it should be said that once he meets Qi Bidian or Xianxia in the future, he may find out a little more from them. However, Yang Yi felt quite annoyed. Why can't you just be frank? Why must it be written in such a profound manner? If he wrote this book, he would definitely write, "The biggest fist wins." Yang Yi and Blood Maiden were still waiting in the void space. They were waiting for Sky Maiden to regain consciousness. As far as they were concerned, they had no other choice, because they didn't know which part of the void space was being devoured by Sky Maiden right now. Instead of going off in search of her, it was better to wait here. After all, her body was here, so she would be back sooner or later. A long time passed. Energy was still surging incessantly from the surroundings, but Sky Maiden still wasn't conscious. Blood Maiden spoke softly. "You head back first. My presence here is enough." Yang Yi shook his head. He was naturally unable to just rest at ease and leave Blood Maiden here at a time like this. Blood Maiden wanted to say more, but the world around them suddenly shook. They hurriedly gazed at Sky Maiden. Meanwhile, the energy around Sky Maiden vanished. It didn't take long for her to open her eyes slowly. Once she opened her eyes, she gazed at Yang Yi and Blood Maiden's direction. A moment later, she appeared out of thin air before them. She sized up Yang Yi and gazed at Blood Maiden. "What are both of you doing here?" Blood Maiden replied, "I lost contact with you, so we came to look for you." Sky Maiden pondered deeply for a moment and said, "It's my mistake. I didn't consider this. Both of you can go. I'm fine here." Blood Maiden was astounded. "You're not coming with us?" Sky Maiden glanced at the surroundings and grinned. "After I devour the entire void space." Blood Maiden was still puzzled. "Why?" Sky Maiden explained. "I have an agreement with the Void Lord. He allowed me to enter the void space in return for devouring all the void planets in the void space." "Why?" It was Yang Yi who asked this question. Sky Maiden glanced at Yang Yi and said, "The void space resides within the void world, but the void space will grow larger and larger, and it will pose a threat to the entire void world. If it is allowed to grow unchecked, the day will come when the void world will be devoured by the void space. But the Void Lord cannot destroy the void planets here because if he does so by force, the energy created from their destruction would similarly pose a threat to the void world. So, he exhausts a huge amount of manpower and resources from the various races here to suppress the void planets here from time to time." Yang Yi gained a slight understanding at this point. Sky Maiden could devour the void planets without affecting the void world, so it was a win-win for them. Especially to Sky Maiden because devouring these void planets would make her boundlessly strong. Sky Maiden asked, "Where are our sisters?" Blood Maiden replied, "In Eternal Kingdom. All of them are safe. You have nothing to worry about." Sky Maiden nodded slightly. She seemed to have thought of something and gazed at Yang Yi. They are with you? Yang Yi nodded. She said, take good care of them. She turned around and vanished into the distance. She left without the slightest hesitation. Yang Yi laughed bitterly and gazed at Blood Maiden. The latter fell silent for a short while and said, since eldest sister is fine, let's go too. Yang Yi nodded. He was about to leave with her, but she suddenly said, you go first. Yang Yi nodded slightly. I'll be waiting for you outside. He left once he finished speaking. Once Yang Yi left, Blood Maiden appeared before Sky Maiden. Blood Maiden said, eldest sister, he's gone. So tell me the truth. Sky Maiden glanced at Blood Maiden and fell silent. Blood Maiden spoke solemnly. We've been sisters for so many years, so how could I not realize when you're telling the truth and when you're not? You're definitely keeping something from me. Sky Maiden fell silent for a short while and said, I've come into contact with some people and things. This world will grow increasingly bad, and the situation all of you are in will deteriorate as well. She gazed at Blood Maiden and continued, we must grow even stronger, and I can grow even stronger by staying here. Blood Maiden spoke solemnly. That's it. Sky Maiden nodded. Of course. Blood Maiden fell silent for a short while and said, take care, eldest sister. She turned around and vanished into the distance. Sky Maiden closed her eyes slowly, and then a blood-red character gradually appeared on her forehead. Sky Maiden gently rubbed the character which represented execute and remained silent. Meanwhile, a mysterious figure appeared here. Sky Maiden glanced coldly at the figure. I don't care whether you're taking the Desolate Race or Eternal Kingdom side, but you're not allowed to touch him and my sisters. Otherwise, I'll devour the Void World next. The Void Lord asked solemnly, who is the existence who's backing you? A wisp of ridicule curled up on Sky Maiden's mouth. Why don't you ask yourself? She turned around and left. The Void Lord had an extremely unsightly expression on his face. Sky Maiden had lied to Yang Yi and Blood Maiden just now. The reason she was here wasn't as she'd said. The Void Lord would never allow an outside to devour these void planets, and the void space would never threaten the void world either. She was here because someone sent her here, but the strength of that person was so overwhelming that the Void Lord didn't dare to fight back. Yang Yi and Blood Maiden left the void world, and they immediately set off for Eternal Kingdom, the ancient sword sect. Yang Yi returned to his own abode, or to be more precise, he returned to the primordial pagoda. Training. As far as he was concerned, he had to train right now. His strength could be stronger. As for the ancient sword sect, he had Sword Scroll, Elder Shui, and the others to manage the sect. So he didn't have to worry about the sect at all. Of course, he was paying attention to the Eternal Kingdom, the Soul Sect, and the other powers. Or it should be said that all of these powers were watching him. Presently, the entire Eternal Kingdom, and especially the Soul Sect, were absolutely worried about Yang Yi. They were afraid that he would just go mad and start looking for trouble with them again. Fortunately, Yang Yi didn't leave the ancient sword sect upon returning from the void world, and this allowed all of those powers to heave sighs of relief. Just like that, a few days passed before Sword Scroll suddenly appeared within the pagoda. In the cultivation room, Yang Yi opened his eyes and gazed at her. Sword Scroll spoke solemnly. They're back. Yang Yi immediately stood up and Sword Scroll continued. But they may be in some trouble. Too many powers are targeting her. The her here was naturally Snowy, the sprite progenitor. Yang Ye's eyes narrowed slightly. I'll go get them. Yang Yi vanished from within the pagoda. A moment later, a sword howl shot up into the sky above the sect and vanished into the distant sky. At the peak of a mountain, a young girl kicked a rock in front of her. Big sis in. What the heck is this place? The tall woman in front of the young girl glanced at the surroundings and shook her head. I don't know. The young girl frowned slightly. Big sis Lianshuang is terrible. She didn't teleport us to the wrong place, right? The woman shook her head. It isn't her fault. Someone damaged the teleportation formation and caused us to be unable to accurately enter Eternal Kingdom. It was intentional. The young girl's frown deepened. She seemed to have thought of something and gazed at the white little fellow on her shoulder. Snowy, I bet a cotton candy that they are definitely here for you. For me? Snowy blinked, and then she continued licking the cotton candy in her paws. She'd brought this over from Yang Lianshuang's home, and it was soft, sweet, and absolutely delicious. Something worth mentioning was that they'd brought many things with them. It was a truly fun place. Meanwhile, Arya seemed to have thought of something. She sighed and sat at the side. And Nanjing glanced at Arya. What is it? Arya seemed quite depressed. That big guy that's like a bird. That thing which could fly really high. What was it called again? Oh, it was a play something. And Nanjing corrected her. Plane. Arya nodded. Right, that thing. It was really fun. But it's just too expensive. Even the money I borrowed from that place isn't enough to buy one. What a pity. Otherwise, it would definitely be fun to have one here. And Nanjing glanced at Arya. Why didn't you just borrow one? Arya shook her head. I'm a person with principles. If they refuse, how can I force them to lend one to me? And Nanjing stated, You never thought like that when you borrowed money. Arya stood up. That's different. And Nanjing asked, What's different about it? Arya thought for a moment and replied, That place had a lot of money. I did my research. They have the most money. It's simply an unending supply. And Nanjing asked, And? Arya blinked. Since they have an unending supply of money, why can't they lend me some? Snowy hurriedly nodded to display her agreement. And Nanjing frowned slightly. What kind of way of thinking is that? They don't owe you anything. When she noticed that Nanjing was slightly angry, Arya hurriedly withdrew something that looked like a piece of paper and showed it to Nanjing. Big Sisson, look, that place put this outside. They said to look for them when you're in need, and they can give you a loan. I got a loan from them. They asked us to go to them when we're in need. Moreover, we have to pay them interest on the loan, so it's a really good deal for them. And Nanjing glanced at the paper, and what Arya mentioned really was on there. A short while passed before Nanjing gazed at Arya. They only make money when you repay them, but how will they make any money if you don't? Besides that, you must return what you borrow. Understand? She felt that she should give these two little fellows a proper view on life, because they were really too shameless right now. Arya spoke guiltily. I asked them at the time, and they said I don't have to return any of it. And Nanjing laughed coldly. You put such a huge blade to their throats, so how could they dare to make you return anything? Arya looked down. Then, Big Sis and when should we return it to them? And Nanjing thought for a moment. She was about to speak when Snowy suddenly appeared in front of her. Snowy waved her claws lightly. She was saying that Yang Yi had taken many crystals from her, and he'd never returned any of it. And Nanjing was stunned speechless. Snowy continued waving her claws. She was saying that Yang Yi had told her that her possessions were his, and his possessions were still his. So, according to that logic, it should be the same for her and that bank. The bank's money should belong to her, and her money should still belong to her. Yours is mine, and mine is still mine. That was how Snowy thought, because that was what Yang Yi had taught her. After she finished conveying it all, Snowy blinked and gazed at Nanjing in silence. She was waiting for an answer, and Nanjing was at a loss for words. And Nanjing had quite the headache. How should she answer the question? Actually, she noticed that many things in this world weren't suited to Yang Lianshuang's world. Similarly, some of that world's rules weren't suitable for this place. However, Arya and Snowy were being absolutely shameless and had to be corrected. Otherwise, she could only imagine the trouble they would get into. However, Nanjing didn't answer Snowy because she decided to make Yang Yi teach them. Yang Yi was absolutely responsible for the fact that they'd become so shameless. Suddenly, the space in the surroundings shook, and then many obscure auras appeared. And Nanjing frowned when she sensed this. Arya glanced at the surroundings and gazed at Snowy. They are definitely here for you. Snowy blinked and licked the cotton candy. It didn't bother her, it really didn't. Arya asked, Aren't you afraid? Snowy shook her head. She pointed at Arya to display that she had area. Arya rolled her eyes and spoke seriously. Snowy, I think you should learn how to fight. Fight. Snowy blinked and was quite interested, and Nanjing shook her head, and she felt it was best to keep Snowy from learning how to fight. Otherwise, she would grow even more lawless with Arya. Their logic was something that most people couldn't understand. Meanwhile, a black-robed figure appeared on the right, and the figure walked slowly in their direction. And Nanjing gazed at the black figure in silence. Arya glanced at the black figure and withdrew a fist-sized bottle. In the bottle was a fine straw. It was something she'd brought here from that world. It was sour and delicious. Suddenly, she seemed to think of something and hurriedly passed a bottle to Snowy. Snowy didn't refuse. Just like that, they started drinking from the bottles. Meanwhile, the black-robed man suddenly said, "My lord would like to invite you for a meeting. I wonder if you'll give him this face." Suddenly, and Nanjing vanished on the spot. The black-robed man's expression changed drastically, and he twisted his right hand slightly. In an instant, a black tornado surged forward. However, a spear suddenly stabbed toward him. Hiss! The spear shot through. The black tornado was instantly obliterated. At the same time, a Nanjing suddenly appeared behind him. Besides that, a spear was in his chest. An instant kill. The black-robed man had no chance. And Nanjing returned to where she'd been a moment ago. Meanwhile, Arya gave a Nanjing a thumbs up. "Big sis and you're my idol." And Nanjing glanced at her. "You deal with the next one." Arya nodded, and then she looked to the left. A few black-clothed figures had appeared there. Most of them were at the Lord Realm. Arya didn't use her fists this time. She withdrew a blade. A very long blade. It was even taller than her. It was something she'd brought over from that world. She'd fallen in love with it upon laying eyes on it in a weapons shop. Why? Because it was long and domineering. And Nanjing shook her head. "It's too weak." It was an extremely ordinary blade. It could be used in that world, but it was impossible to use in this one. Moreover, using it made Arya seem quite strange. Arya glanced at the blade and put it away. It was too weak, and it couldn't be used to strike anyone. Once she put the blade away, she gazed at the group of black-robed men. A moment later, she clenched her fists slowly, and then vanished on the spot. Bang! At the instant Arya vanished, the space in a huge area shook violently, and then the space in the surroundings cracked open. Pure strength. It was so powerful that even a Nanjing was visibly moved. Arya's strength was the strongest and most terrifying she'd ever seen. Even Yang Yi, who cultivated in the body, couldn't compete with her. Rumble. Explosions resounded incessantly as figures were blasted away. Every figure was blasted over 1 kilometer away before exploding apart. Completely exploding apart. They were blasted apart by the force of her attacks. It didn't take long for the battle to stop. Arya patted her hands together and returned to the others. She gazed at Snowy and said, "You're up next." Snowy blinked, and then quietly enjoyed her cotton candy. And Nanjing gazed at the two little gluttons with a grin on her face, and then she glanced at the surroundings and said, "Let's go." Suddenly, she frowned again. A mysterious barrier had suddenly appeared around her. This barrier had locked down the space in a huge area around them. They refused to let a Nanjing's group leave. And Nanjing raised her right hand, and the spear returned to her grasp. A moment later, she hurled it forward. Hiss! The spear tore through the air, but it didn't take long for it to be obstructed by a strand of mysterious energy. Meanwhile, a Nanjing tapped the tip of her foot against the ground, and then she soared up into the sky. A moment later, she kicked the back of the spear. Bam! The spear shook violently and shot through the obstruction before it. Bang! Something seemed to shatter in the surroundings, and the world shook around them. The barrier had been destroyed. And Nanjing put her spear away and gazed at Arya and Snowy. "Let's go." Arya hurriedly nodded and followed a Nanjing. However, they were bound to be unable to leave smoothly today. After all, there was a sprite progenitor here. A sprite progenitor who was very likely to change the situation of some things. An old man had appeared not too far away from them. An old man with white hair and a white beard. The old man wore a loose, luxurious robe, and he looked very elegant and wealthy. The old man glanced at a Nanjing before his gaze fell on Snowy. Once he verified Snowy's identity, he gazed at a Nanjing. I want to invite all three of you to the Origin World. I wonder if you'll accept my invitation. The Origin World. That mysterious place couldn't avoid being tempted by the sprite progenitor. Actually, it was linked to Chi Bitian, because the commotion she caused had harmed the essence of the Origin World. The best way for the Origin World to heal quickly was to get the sprite progenitor and make her help them repair the place. There was no other quicker way to achieve that. Meanwhile, Arya suddenly said, "Old man, can we refuse?" The old man shook his head. "I'm afraid not." Arya glanced at the old man and said, "Old man, you should move aside, or I'll beat you to death." Snowy nodded on Arya's shoulder. It was because Arya was very strong in battle. The old man sized up Arya and was quite surprised. "You're not human?" Arya gazed at a Nanjing. "Big Sisson, am I not human?" A Nanjing thought for a moment and replied, "I don't think you are." Arya frowned slightly. "Then what am I?" A Nanjing rolled her eyes. "How would I know?" Arya thought for a moment and said, "I'm not a demon beast, am I?" No. Demon beasts are quite ugly. I don't want to be one." The old man spoke indifferently. "Have you finished thinking about it?" A Nanjing suddenly vanished on the spot with her spear, and then a spear stabbed at the old man's forehead. However, it stopped around an inch away from the old man's forehead. The old man had suddenly grabbed a Nanjing's spear, and his powerful strength rendered it impossible to move her spear even an inch further. Meanwhile, the old man shook his head. Bang! A Nanjing was blasted backward with her spear. A Destiny Realm expert. The old man was no Lord Realm expert, he was a Destiny Realm expert. Arya blinked and said, "Snowy, this old man is a little strong." Snowy was at a loss for what to say, and Nanjing glanced at her spear. At this moment there were many cracks on it. The old man's strength surpassed her expectations a little. Meanwhile, the old man glanced at the surroundings. "Everyone, this sprite progenitor is extremely important to my origin world. Don't worry, we won't keep it for ourselves. Once the origin world is repaired, we will hand her over to you and let you do with her as you please. But for now, please give us face for a while." Obviously, the origin world wasn't the only power here. The origin world didn't have to give face to some of them, but it had to give face to the desolate race and eternal kingdom. At the very least, they had to show courtesy. Otherwise, he would never be able to take the sprite progenitor with him. The surroundings remained very quiet, and he received no reply. Meanwhile, the old man cupped his fist toward the surroundings. "Thank you." As soon as he finished speaking, he gazed at a Nanjing's group. A moment later, he waved his right hand, and then a circle of blue light appeared out of thin air beneath a Nanjing and the others' feet. They were about to resist it, but along with the arrival of 3 powerful auras, they were unable to move anymore. 3 Destiny Realm experts. This time, in order to ensure the success of their efforts, the Origin World had sent 3 Destiny Realm experts. The sprite progenitor was too important to them. Just like that, a Nanjing and the others vanished with the old man's group. There was no room for them to resist before 3 Destiny Realm experts. Just a few breaths of time after Nanjing's group vanished, a sword howl shot through the sky, and it descended at the peak of the mountain. The light dispersed to reveal Xianxia's figure. He glanced at the surroundings, and then his face turned cold. An instant later, he hurled his sword to the right. "Ah!" A shrill cry resounded from afar, and then a bloody head fell from the sky. But Xianxia didn't stop there. He charged up into the sky. A short while later, shrill cries resounded incessantly. Heads fell one after the other. Finally, a furious shout resounded in the sky. "Madman Yang, what the heck is wrong with you? It's the origin world which took them. If you have the ability, then go seek them out. What are you going mad here for?" Xianxia stopped and glanced coldly in the direction of the voice. How do I get to the origin world? The voice replied coldly, I don't know. Xianxia nodded, and then he charged at the source of the voice. Why you madman? W will send you there, all right? Xianxia was naturally unaware of the way to the origin world. After all, Chibidian had sent him there the last time. He'd never gone there himself, but he knew that these people here definitely knew how to get there. At this moment, he wasn't in a very normal state due to the fact that Snowy and the others had been taken. He was capable of anything right now. The experts from the other powers here were clearly aware of that too. Xianxia was a madman without a shred of sensibility, and he would act rashly in this state. Obviously, they didn't want to shoulder the consequences for the origin world. It didn't take long for some of the Destiny Realm experts here to take action. A huge teleportation formation appeared beneath Xianxia's feet. It was extremely huge. It was over 300 m wide. A few breaths of time later, the formation shook, and then Xianxia vanished within it. The others in the shadows heaved sighs of relief when they saw Xianxia vanish. That madman wasn't in a normal state anymore, and he would fight people to the death if he was allowed to stay a while longer. Actually, some of the powers here felt quite fortunate. They felt lucky that the sprite progenitor had been taken by the origin world. Because if it had been taken by them, they would have offended this madman, and it would probably result in them never having another moment of peace. Now, the origin world was in trouble. A long time passed before Xianxia opened his eyes. At this moment, he was in the origin world. Or to be more precise, he was on that bridge. Xianxia glanced at the surroundings, and then ferocity instantly covered his face. A moment later, he stabbed his sword down with both hands. Hiss! The bridge cracked open. How dare you! Suddenly, a furious shout resounded in the air above Xianxia. And then a towering palm descended from the sky and clawed at Xianxia's head. Xianxia looked up, and then a ray of sword energy shot up into the air. Bang! The huge palm was blasted into bits. Meanwhile, an old man appeared before Xianxia, and his expression changed upon seeing Xianxia. It's you! He naturally recognized Xianxia. It was all because of this fellow that the entire origin world had suffered a calamity it didn't deserve. Everyone had been horrified by that incident. Now, this fellow was here again. The old man stared at Xianxia. What are you doing here again? Xianxia laughed coldly. What am I doing here? I'm here to kill. Xianxia charged at the old man. The old man's eyelids twitched. He waved his right hand lightly, and then a pitch-black beam of light surged out from his palm. However, the pitch-black beam of light was obliterated by a swing of Xianxia's sword. Xianxia was swift and shot directly at the old man, and then his sword stabbed forward once more. The domain sword. The old man's pupils constricted, and then his figure turned ethereal. The sword pierced through his ethereal body. However, it wasn't the old man's real body as he'd appeared over 1 kilometer away. At this moment, the old man's face was quite gloomy. Xianxia, this isn't a place for you to go berserk. If you leave now, I can... Suddenly, Xianxia appeared before him again. Xianxia's sword descended. At the same time, a few flying swords shot at the old man. The old man's face became unsightly, but he didn't attack. He just retreated 3 kilometers away. It was because he was a Destiny Realm expert. It was because a Destiny Realm expert had attacked Xianxia that the young girl had shown herself, and once that young girl arrived, it caused 2 powers to eternally vanish from the origin world. Most importantly, the bridge had almost been completely destroyed. Even the boundless water beneath the bridge had almost obliterated this world because of the bridge's destruction. So, even if he was furious, he didn't dare to attack Xianxia. The old man stared at Xianxia. Xianxia, what the heck do you want? Xianxia walked toward the old man. Snowy. Oh right, you call her the sprite progenitor. If anything happens to them, I swear that I'll annihilate this entire place. The sprite progenitor. The old man's eyes narrowed slightly. You're here for the sprite progenitor. Xianxia stopped, glanced at the surroundings, and then gazed at the old man. I don't have much patience. Actually, he was on the verge of losing control. Snowy and Nanjing and area could all be considered to be his reverse scales. He refused to let anyone touch them. The old man gazed coldly at Yang Yi. Yang Yi, that sprite progenitor isn't your personal property. You? Fuck you! Suddenly, Yang Yi howled with fury, and then a ray of blood-red sword energy flashed on the bridge. The old man's face instantly darkened. At this moment, his temper flared as well. The old man stomped his right foot down and transformed into a shadow that shot at Yang Yi. Boom! A rumbling explosion resounded above the bridge. An instant later, a figure was blasted away. It was Yang Yi. Yang Yi flew over 1 kilometer away before he stopped himself. The old man gazed coldly at Yang Yi. Yang Yi, I'll give you a chance. Leave now or... Yang Yi wiped off the blood on the corner of his mouth and spoke ferociously. Leave? Fuck your ancestors. If you don't hand over Snowy and the others right now, then I'll kill all of you. Yang Ye's figure transformed into a ray of light that charged at the old man. The desire to kill arose in the old man's eyes. He was a dignified Destiny Realm expert, so how could he not be furious when Yang Yi was insulting him like that? The old man stopped thinking about the consequences and charged at Yang Yi. Bang! Bang! Explosions resounded throughout the air above the bridge. The battle between Yang Yi and the old man drew the attention of some experts, and their expressions turned unsightly when they saw that it was Yang Yi. The maleficent existence was here once again. They naturally weren't afraid of Yang Yi. They were afraid of the expert who backed Yang Yi. Everyone had backing, and practically all who were without it were dead. But Yang Ye's backing was a little too powerful. That young girl had almost obliterated this world. The battle was still going on above the bridge. Suppression. While Yang Ye's strength was extremely terrifying, it was still quite insufficient against a Destiny Realm expert. Suppression of the realm of cultivation. Boom! An explosion resounded and Yang Yi was blasted away. He flew over 10 kilometers away. The old man descended slowly from midair. He descended to the bridge while strands of destructive aura ceaselessly rippled out from him. The old man's face turned icy cold as he gazed coldly at Yang Yi. Yang Yi, it's not too late to fuck off right now. Otherwise, even that person who backs you won't be able to save you. Yang Yi spat out the blood in his mouth and looked up at the old man. He laughed ferociously. Leave? No, it's only just the beginning. Come on. Let's continue. Executor started to tremble in Yang Ye's grasp. Moreover, Yang Ye's blood started to surge as well. Bloodline energy. At this moment, Yang Yi had fully unleashed his bloodline energy. The old man gazed coldly at Yang Yi. You asked for this, so don't blame me for killing you. His figure slowly soared into the sky while he waved his hands. Countless strands of water surged up into the air from the surroundings, and then the boundless water condensed into arrows. A moment later, he shook his hands slightly in Yang Ye's direction. Hiss! 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 The arrows of boundless water shot through the air toward Yang Yi. Yang Yi closed his eyes slowly. An instant later, countless strands of sword intent and sword energy appeared. The sword domain sphere. Once the sword domain sphere appeared, the arrows of water around him were sliced into bits. Suddenly, the old man slammed his fist at Yang Yi. Bang! The sword energy and sword intent around Yang Yi vanished without a trace while Yang Ye's figure was pushed back repeatedly as well. The old man didn't stop there. His figure shook, and then a wave of powerful energy swept through the bridge. At this moment, the entire bridge shook. Yang Ye's pupils constricted, and he swung his sword with both hands. The domain sword carried his full strength. As soon as it descended, a powerful explosion resounded through the bridge, and then 2 figures were blasted toward either side of the bridge. It was Yang Yi and the old man, but it didn't take long for the old man to stop himself. The old man looked down at his chest, and there was an extremely deep injury there. Blood was ceaselessly seeping out of it. If he'd been just a little slower, he may have been sliced into 2. The old man was livid. He looked up at the sky and said, If we don't eliminate him today, then based on his shocking talent, he'll definitely become a latent problem for our origin world. A moment of silence ensued, and then a voice resounded from the sky. Then kill him! Once he received an answer, the old man gazed at Yang Yi and smiled fiercely. Yang Yi, today's the day you die. He seemed to have thought of something at this point and made a clawing motion toward the air in front of him. The space there suddenly split open, and then a fluffy little fellow appeared in the old man's grasp. It was Snowy. At this moment, terror covered Snowy's face, and her little body was trembling. Snowy immediately started crying upon noticing Yang Yi. The old man smiled ferociously at Yang Yi. Yang Yi, you care a lot about this animal? As soon as he finished speaking, a bolt of lightning suddenly appeared in his right hand, and then it instantly enveloped Snowy. Hiss! 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 Snowy immediately let out a shrill and miserable cry. She shook madly while unprecedented horror arose in her eyes. However, the old man didn't stop. A dagger appeared in his grasp, and he spoke fiercely. Yang Yi, watch closely. As soon as he finished speaking, he swung it lightly against Snowy's forehead. Hiss! Snowy's forehead was sliced open, and a strand of blood surged out. Xianxia's mind went blank when he witnessed this. Blank. At this moment, Yang Yi was completely stunned. Snowy was horrified, helpless, and in pain. Ha ha! The old man seemed rather insane. Yang Yi, do you remember that bald old man which that woman killed on this bridge? Yes, he was my elder brother by blood. We brothers cultivated together, came to the origin world together, and attained the destiny realm together. However, he died because of you. Now, I'm going to make you pay 100-fold. The old man was about to do it again once he finished speaking. Suddenly, Yang Yi vanished on the spot. The old man's eyes narrowed slightly, and he casually tossed Snowy back into the spatial rift. Meanwhile, Yang Yi had arrived before him. At the same time, a wave of monstrous slaughter intent assaulted him. The old man was shocked. He'd never seen such terrifying slaughter intent. It wasn't at the Lord Realm anymore. It was Destiny Realm slaughter intent. As soon as he noticed this, horror filled the old man. The gap between Yang Yi and them was a gap in their realms of cultivation. However, once Yang Yi's slaughter intent attained the Destiny Realm, it represented that gap would shrink. It would shrink tremendously. The old man didn't dare act carelessly. He clenched both his fists and slammed them forward. However, Executor's might was completely different now that it carried Destiny Realm slaughter intent. Hiss! The blood-red sword obliterated the energy from the old man's punches, allowing Yang Yi to instantly get close to the old man. Meanwhile, a spear condensed into form in the old man's grasp. A moment later, the spear pierced through Yang Yi's chest. However, the old man was horrified, because Yang Yi didn't dodge his attack, and Yang Yi had intentionally allowed it to hit. A moment later, a sword stabbed into the old man's chest, and then a hand grabbed his throat. Just like that, the old man was lifted up by Yang Yi. At this moment, the old man saw Yang Yi who was completely different than before. A blood-red Yang Yi. Yang Yi's entire body was blood-red. Blood-red hair, blood-red pupils, and he emanated boundless slaughter intent. After he attained the Destiny Realm, he'd seen a vast number of experts, and it was the second time he'd seen such dense slaughter intent. Yang Yi raised the old man closer to himself. At this moment, he had an extremely ferocious and terrifying look on his face, and it was simply impossible to describe with words. Countless watched as Yang Yi nailed the old man to the bridge with his sword, and then he started to slice off piece after piece of flesh from the old man. Every swing of his sword would take a slice of flesh from the old man, a slice as thin as a cicada's wings. The old man laughed ferociously. Yang Yi, is this all you've got? Yang Yi ignored the old man and just continued slicing. At the same time, his icy cold voice resounded. I, Yang Yi, swear on my life that I'll kill everyone in this world. I'll make everyone in this world pay. If I fail to do so, I'm willing to suffer the cruelest death in the world and never be reincarnated. Boom! As soon as he finished speaking, countless strands of slaughter intent swept out madly from within him. At this moment, his slaughter intent rose crazily. Slaughter intent was unlike sword intent. It didn't depend on the mental state, it depended on the desire to kill. When the desire to kill arrived at a person's limits, that person's slaughter intent would rise. It was why his slaughter intent hadn't improved for so long. It was because it had never reached his limits. Now, it hadn't just reached his limits. It broke past his limits. It was simply boundless. Kill. Xianxia's desire to kill was unprecedented. Xianxia's desire to kill and his slaughter intent had surpassed his limits. Now, just his sword intent and sword heart were insufficient to suppress all of it. Or it should be said that his sword intent and sword heart were completely suppressed by them. His sword was a sword of slaughter now. As for his Tao, it had changed from the sword Tao to the slaughter Tao. A Tao of slaughter. Amid this boundless slaughter intent, Xianxia sensed an unprecedented force. Xianxia stopped and raised his hands. In an instant, a powerful barrier appeared around him. No, it was a domain. A domain. The old man gazed at Xianxia with horror. The slaughter domain. You've actually comprehended the slaughter domain. The slaughter domain. The old man wasn't the only one. Everyone in the surroundings was shocked as well. Xianxia had the sword domain already, so if he had the slaughter domain now, it would mean that he had dual domains. Dual domains. They'd witnessed the strength of a domain before this. Experts below the Destiny realm were practically instantly killed by Xianxia. Once Xianxia mastered the slaughter domain, coupled with the fact that he possessed Destiny realm slaughter intent now. At this moment, solemn expressions unconsciously appeared on the faces of countless. Xianxia ignored the old man. He was sensing the domain. The domain was full of slaughter intent, boundless slaughter intent, and boundless strength. The slaughter intent was like a fountain of strength, and he could absorb it madly. Meanwhile, the old man was absolutely uncomfortable while being enveloped by the slaughter domain. Corrosion. The slaughter intent was madly corroding his mind, and his eyes were gradually starting to turn red. Kill. Such a thought had appeared in the old man's head. No matter how he tried to suppress it, nothing changed. So long as he was within Xianxia's slaughter domain, he couldn't eliminate the desire to kill. Suddenly, Xianxia deactivated the slaughter domain. The old man's eyes gradually regained their clarity. However, it wasn't a good thing for him. Xianxia's sword descended. As swing after swing sliced off a piece of the old man, it didn't take long for just bones and the old man's head to remain. Xianxia didn't stop there and forcefully extracted the old man's soul. The old man gazed at Xianxia with horror. What are you doing? The soul was unlike the body. He could endure bodily pain, but he may not be able to endure pain which came from the soul. A ball of flames suddenly appeared on Xianxia's palm. Just like that, Xianxia casually tossed it onto the old man's soul. A shrill and miserable cry resounded. Suddenly, a wave of mysterious energy appeared. As soon as it appeared, the flames around the old man vanished. At the same time, the slaughter intent around Xianxia was suppressed. However, Xianxia's slaughter domain suddenly appeared once more. This time, it didn't just cover the bridge. It covered a huge expanse of space in the surroundings. Countless people were horrified. Xianxia's powerful slaughter intent immediately started corrupting their minds. After all, even a Destiny realm expert hadn't been able to resist it. Kill! Suddenly, furious howls resounded around the bridge. It didn't take long for them to start fighting. Meanwhile, Xianxia waved his right hand. An executor pierced through the old man's soul. Dead. A Destiny realm expert had died just like that. Xianxia walked toward the distance with his sword in hand. At this moment, he killed anyone he saw. Anyone. After his sword intent and sword heart had been suppressed. Then not to mention the others who were affected by his slaughter intent. Even he wasn't very normal now. The experts in the shadows would naturally not let Xianxia run wild. After all, he wasn't Chibidian. So, it didn't take long for a white-haired old man to appear before Yang Yi. It was the old man who'd taken Snowy and Nanjing and area. The old man gazed at Yang Yi, who was walking toward him, and he had a rather solemn expression on his face. Now, even a Destiny Realm expert didn't dare look down on Yang Yi. Once his slaughter intent attained the Destiny Realm, he had the strength to kill Destiny Realm experts, especially when he was holding the super divine treasure, Executor. The old man spoke solemnly. Yang Yi, if you don't resist your slaughter intent now, you'll be corrupted by it. It'll take control of you instead. Suddenly, Yang Yi appeared before the old man. Hiss! A ray of blood-red sword energy instantly arrived before the old man. The old man's eyes narrowed slightly as he raised his hand. A wave of powerful energy surged out from his palm like a torrent. Boom! The energy forcefully stopped Yang Ye's attack, but the old man was pushed around 300 m back. Moreover, he frowned when Yang Ye's slaughter domain appeared. The slaughter intent within it was too dense. So dense that even he found it difficult to resist. The old man has no choice but to retreat over 30 kilometers away and leave the area covered by Yang Ye's slaughter domain. The old man had an unprecedentedly solemn expression on his face as he gazed at Yang Ye's blood-red figure. Yang Ye's slaughter intent was still growing. It didn't stop at the Destiny Realm. It was still rising madly. Yang Yi didn't attack the old man, and he just stabbed his sword into the bridge with both hands. Hiss! The part of the bridge beneath Yang Yi exploded apart, inch by inch. The old man's desire to kill surged from the sight of this. Everyone, he must die. If you're still worried about this and that, we'll probably have to pay the worst price in the future. He received no reply. Meanwhile, Yang Yi was still destroying the bridge. The old man spoke solemnly. Are all of you really going to just let him grow? Allow me to be honest, once he attains the Destiny Realm and is in the same realm as us all, then based on his character and strength, can all of you really stop him? Then kill him. Suddenly, a voice resounded in the sky. The origin world and eternal kingdom will jointly bear all consequences. Obviously, they were joining forces. Along with the voice, a pitch-black pike flashed down from the sky. Hiss! A moment later, it pierced Yang Ye's chest and blasted him away. One of the peak experts of this world had attacked. The master of the divine abode. Bam! Yang Yi fell to the bridge with the pike still in his chest. Even though he possessed the slaughter domain now, and his slaughter intent was at the peak of the Destiny Realm, it was still far from enough before the peak existences of this world. After all, some of them were people from the same era as Chibidian. Yang Yi stood up slowly from the ground. He grabbed the pike with both hands and tried to pull it out, but he couldn't no matter how hard he tried. It was like the pike was growing out of his body. Along with the descent of the pike, Yang Ye's slaughter domain had been instantly destroyed as well, so the people in the surroundings returned to normal. However, some were already dead. Once they recovered, they immediately fled the area. Meanwhile, a middle-aged man in a black robe appeared above the bridge. The middle-aged man walked slowly in Yang Ye's direction. He was the master of the divine abode, and one of the peak experts of this universe. The divine abode's master glanced at Yang Ye's blood-red figure and said, "Looks like she isn't going to show herself again. Of course, it doesn't matter even if she does." They hadn't been prepared the first time, but they were prepared for the worst now. Moreover, it wasn't just the origin world alone that would face her. The Eternal Kingdom had joined forces with them. The divine abode's master glanced at the surroundings and looked down at Yang Yi. Even though it can be considered as bullying you, it can't be helped. No matter what, all of this can end now. He was about to kill Yang Yi once he finished speaking. However, a middle-aged man suddenly appeared by Yang Ye's side. The divine abode's master frowned at the sight of him. It was none other than the Desolate Emperor. The divine abode's master spoke solemnly. "Desolate Emperor, you should think this through." Ha ha! The Desolate Emperor smiled and glanced at the surroundings. The Soul Sect's master, the Eternal Lord, and those old geezers of this place. Oh, I didn't expect that even Mr. Jing would be here. TSK, TSK. Amazing. The most renowned and strongest experts of this world are almost all here. He gazed at Yang Yi and continued, Young brother Yang, you're truly quite amazing. Yang Yi didn't offer any response and just madly pulled at the pike. However, he couldn't pull it out no matter what. The divine abode's master spoke indifferently. It's not him. The desolate emperor smiled. Of course, but I have to say that while he isn't that great now, it doesn't mean he won't be in the future. The divine abode's master replied indifferently. He may not have a future. Of course, if you interfere, then perhaps he may have a future. However, you should think about the consequences. The desolate emperor nodded. I understand. If I help him, Eternal Kingdom would be the happiest, because the origin world would take their side, right? The divine abode's master remained silent. The desolate emperor smiled and gazed at Yang Yi, and then he pressed his right hand lightly down upon Yang Yi. A moment later, the slaughter intent Yang Yi emanated was completely suppressed. Yang Yi returned to normal. However, his eyes were blood red. His slaughter intent had been suppressed, but his desire to kill remained. Moreover, the slaughter intent with him was surging. The desolate emperor sized up Yang Yi and said, Long time no see. Yang Yi remained silent. The desolate emperor smiled. Let's be frank. I cherish geniuses. So, promise me one thing and I'll take you with me. Don't worry. If I say it, then I'll definitely do it. Numerous auras suddenly locked onto the desolate emperor. The desolate emperor glanced at the surroundings and chuckled. Calm down. Our deal hasn't even begun. It's not too late to act once he agrees. The divine abode's master spoke solemnly. Desolate emperor, I know you possess extraordinary natural talent, and you've been to that place and even fought that existence. However, are you really that confident in yourself? Do you really think you can fight all of us? The desolate emperor chuckled. Let's ignore that for now. He gazed at Yang Yi and spoke via voice transmission. You just have to agree to give up the sprite progenitor and return to the desolate race with me, and I can help you with the pressure you face from the Eternal Kingdom. Don't worry. The sprite progenitor will remain with the origin world, and they probably won't harm her. They won't harm her? Yang Yi laughed ferociously. Desolate Emperor, are you joking? They won't harm her? No, they've already harmed her. The Desolate Emperor said, Yang Yi, I can fight the Eternal Kingdom for you because I think highly of your natural talent, and so I'm willing to take this risk. But if you don't give up the sprite progenitor, my desolate race will have to face the origin world and Eternal Kingdom. While I don't fear them, the situation in this world is quite complicated, and I don't want to get myself dragged into it. If you agree to give up the sprite progenitor, the powers of this world won't make an enemy of me just because I've taken you away. I don't want to get dragged into this vortex, and they don't want to get dragged into the vortex between me and the Eternal Kingdom as well. Understand? Yang Yi shook his head. Sorry, I cannot abandon her. The Desolate Emperor frowned slightly. If you give her up, you'll survive. If you refuse, you'll die. As for her, the future she faces won't be any better. Yang Yi shook his head. Then we'll die together. Die together. Yang Yi refused to abandon Snowy, Arya, or Nanjing. If he couldn't save them, he would die with them. Was he being stubborn? No. Yang Yi knew his heart very well, and he knew the current situation well too. Yes, he could give himself a great excuse to abandon them, like staying alive is the only way that there would be a chance or hope. However, it was all just an excuse. If he left now, what about them? What kind of despair would they fall into? Snowy trusted him completely, and so did Arya and Nanjing. He was their everything. Arya had no family left. Snowy had always treated him as her closest family, and Nanjing had no family left as well. She could even abandon the martial Dao for him. So, how could he abandon them at a time like this? Since they couldn't live together, they could die together. That was all he could do. He'd done his best. If they really couldn't leave together, they could die together. He planned to do his best, even if it ended in his death. But he would absolutely not give up. Because if he chose to give up, there would be no need to come here. The desolate emperor gazed at Yang Yi for a long time, and then he suddenly started laughing. He shook his head slightly and patted Yang Yi lightly on the shoulder. I've seen countless geniuses throughout my lifetime, and my race has many of them. To be honest, natural talent and all of that is really not that important at most times. Many people have good talent, but they aren't good people. You're one who follows his heart, and you're still able to follow it when faced with death. You do not lie to yourself or make excuses for yourself. Very good indeed. He glanced at the surroundings and said, Allow me to be honest. Aren't you ashamed for bullying a junior with such great numbers? Even I feel embarrassed for you. The desolate emperor vanished on the spot. Once he vanished, Yang Yi gazed at the divine abode's master. Can you let me see them? The divine abode's master fell silent for a moment, and then he waved his right hand. Arya and Nanjing and Snowy appeared here. However, they were being restrained by a mysterious force. Snowy immediately started crying upon seeing Yang Yi. The cut on her forehead was still there, and it was still bleeding. Yang Yi felt unprecedented pain as he gazed at Snowy, and it was pain he'd only experienced when his mother passed away. Yang Yi forced out a smile and said, Arya, Jinger, and Snowy, I've disappointed you all this time, and Nanjing shook her head slightly. She knew that Yang Yi had tried his best. Arya glanced coldly at the surroundings. Big brother Yang, it's all right. It's just death. I'm not afraid of that. All of you listen up. How dare you treat Snowy like this? If I survive this, I'll tear all of you apart. I swear it. Arya was practically howling. She was experiencing unprecedented rage. Arya even felt like destroying this world when she saw Snowy had been treated like that. Snowy had stopped crying. She felt no fear when she gazed at Yang Yi. She was really unafraid, because Yang Yi was here. Yang Yi cracked a smile. Don't be afraid. No matter what happens, I'll be right there with you. Meanwhile, the divine abode's master glanced at the sky and sent out his divine sense. It didn't take long for it to cover the entire origin world. However, he still couldn't find the person he was looking for. A short while later, he withdrew his divine sense and gazed at Yang Yi. Looks like she won't be coming. Since she isn't, you can really die now. As soon as he finished speaking, he twisted his right hand slightly. In an instant, the spear in Yang Ye's chest started to spin. Yang Ye's face instantly warped. Suddenly, a voice resounded. I heard you're looking for me. The divine abode's master's eyes narrowed slightly as he looked over, and a young girl was seated by the bridge to his right. It was that same young girl. However, her right arm was gone. Chi Bidian. The young girl was Chi Bidian. She gazed at Yang Yi and cracked a smile. I fought someone and lost, and I lost an arm in the process. She'd fought someone. Everyone gazed at Chi Bidian. The young girl who'd almost destroyed the origin world that day was here again. She was back. All of them acted like they were facing a formidable enemy. Of course, they were prepared for the worst. Chi Bidian gazed at Arya and Snowy. She grinned when she saw Arya, walked over to Arya and said, I'm Chi Bidian. You helped me in the past. Arya gazed at Chi Bidian for a long time and shook her head. I don't know you, but can you help me? Chi Bidian nodded. Of course. After all, you're the only one who dared to help me at that time. Arya gazed at Snowy. Save her. Save Snowy. It was Arya's only request. Chi Bidian gazed at Snowy. She was stunned when she saw Snowy, and then she smiled. She was smiling. No one knew what this smile meant. Meanwhile, she glanced at the sky, and her smile grew wider. You know, you're severed your only way out of this. If she remains unharmed, then perhaps you would have a chance to live. Because that existence won't just watch as I do as I please. Yet now, I can promise you that even if I let you go, that existence may not do the same. The divine abode's master shook his head slightly. The desolate emperor killed a sprite progenitor in the past, but isn't he all fine and well now? Chi Bidian looked to the right. The desolate emperor was standing there. Chi scanned the desolate emperor, and the latter nodded slightly as a form of greeting. Chi moved her gaze away and looked at the divine abode's master. To think you're from the same era as me. Yet you can't even discern something like this. She raised her left hand slightly. Hiss! The mysterious energy that trapped Arya and the others instantly vanished without a trace. Snowy immediately flew into Xianxia's arms. She didn't cry and just held him tightly. She had been really afraid. Xianxia gently rubbed Snowy's head. While he looked extremely calm, the desire to kill in his mind was surging. Chi gazed at Arya and Xianxia. Leave this place. Xianxia shook his head. Leave? No. He refused to leave. He had many things to do. Arya shook her head too. She glanced at the surroundings and said, I think all of them deserve death. Chi shook her head. You're not who you used to be. You don't have the strength to do that. She gazed at Xianxia and continued, Take them and leave. Don't be rash. Xianxia shook his head again. Rash? He planned to be truly rash this time. Xianxia gazed at Arya, and the latter shook her head. Big brother Yang, I refuse. Arya immediately appeared on the bridge once she finished speaking. A ferocious grin curled up on her mouth. No, it should be called vicious instead. A moment later, she slammed her fists at the bridge below her. Destroy the bridge. The desolate emperor gazed at Arya. At this moment, she was emanating a vicious aura. No, it wasn't just vicious, it was evil. Many others noticed it as well. Chi glanced at Arya. Releasing your nature? That's fine too. She gazed at Xianxia. Are you sure you refuse to leave? Xianxia nodded. Chi nodded slightly. Then take care. As soon as she finished speaking, she gazed at the divine abode's master. Looks like that little sprite progenitor and him aren't your only targets today. I'm one too. Right. I'm here now, so bring it. For powerful auras suddenly appeared behind the divine abode's master. Every one of them wasn't inferior to him. Chi glanced at them and shook her head. Just that? That isn't enough at all. What if you include me too? Suddenly, a voice resounded from Chi right. A short moment later, an old man in plain robes appeared above the boundless water. He just stood there above the water. Shui Wubian, the desolate emperor suddenly chuckled. What are you doing out of your boundless water? The old man glanced at the desolate emperor. That's none of your business. The desolate emperor smiled and did not get angry. He gazed at Chi and said, Shui Wubian is the spirit of the boundless water. A true old geezer. Right, let me introduce the rest. Besides him, there's the divine abode's master, the eternal lord, the soul sex master, and Mr. Jing. Mr. Jing is quite mysterious, and he should be from the same era as you. He glanced at the space on the right. As for this one hiding in space, I don't know who that is. TSK. This aura is really quite strong. Haha. The smile on the desolate emperor's face was growing wider, because the entire incident was growing increasingly interesting. Shui Wubian gazed at Chi You're not from this era, so why go against us? Actually, the alliance formed between the experts of this world and the emergence of some mysterious experts was very understandable. It was because Chi arrival may spell the end of this entire world. All those who didn't wish to see the origin world destroyed and had the strength to stop it would show themselves. The origin world's strength was far greater than this, especially now that Chi was clearly injured. Chi soared up slowly into the air. Countless auras instantly locked onto the area around her. At the same time, a mysterious barrier appeared above her. It was clearly the work of the origin world. However, along with a lift push of her left palm, the barrier vanished without a trace. Meanwhile, Shui Wubian suddenly said, Let me try her first. He suddenly closed his eyes. Boom! A moment later, the boundless water below surged, and then a huge water dragon charged out of the water. A powerful wave of pressure surged through the area. Chi tapped her right foot down. Bang! The entire sky shook violently while the huge water dragon was stopped on the spot. The dragon roared hysterically while waves of powerful dragon pressure surged madly at Chi Bidian. Chi Bidian smiled with ridicule. Weak! She tapped her right foot down again. Boom! The huge dragon instantly exploded apart and countless pearls of water rained down from above. Meanwhile, Shui Wubian raised his right hand. The sky suddenly fell silent. The water droplets floated soundlessly in the air. And then they started spinning rapidly, causing waves of powerful energy to appear around Chi Bidian. Chi Bidian glanced at the surroundings. A water domain cultivated with the help of boundless water. Is not bad indeed. No wonder you dared to face me. However, you're still too young. She clenched her left fist. Hiss! The space around her cracked open, and then the space in around 3 kilometers around her just vanished without a trace. The countless droplets of water vanished along with the space. Shui Wubian frowned at the sight of this. They had been wiped out of existence. His water domain and the boundless water had been instantly eliminated. They'd been eliminated along with the space here too. Shui Wubian stared at Chi Bidian yet refused to stop. A moment later, the water domain condensed into form again. But as soon as it did, it was obliterated by a strand of mysterious energy. Obliterating domains. At this moment, Shui Wubian was truly shocked. In all his years, he'd never met anyone capable of forcefully obliterating his domain. Shui Wubian stared at Chi Bidian. What is that ability of yours? Chi Bidian suddenly raised her left hand in Shui Wubian's direction, causing the latter to be shocked. A moment later, countless waves appeared around him. These waves were made of boundless water, and it could be said that with the water domain there to enhance them, these waves weren't any inferior to super divine treasures. However, along with the descent of Chi Bidian's attack, the boundless water around Shui Wubian started to explode apart inch by inch. Boom! An instant later, the boundless water around Shui Wubian was obliterated, and Shui Wubian himself was blasted away out of everyone's fields of vision. Chi Bidian lowered her hand and glanced at the surroundings. Next? Or how about all of you join forces? As expected of someone who even destiny must hunt. Meanwhile, a middle-aged man with a crown on his head appeared before Chi Bidian. He was the man the desolate emperor had introduced earlier, Mr. Jing. As for his background, it was a mystery. Even the others in the origin world weren't aware of it, and all they did know was that he was part of the origin world. Chi Bidian gazed at Mr. Jing, sized him up, and then looked at Yang Yi. I can't use my full strength, and I can't stay here for too long either. If you don't leave now, what are you waiting for? Hurry up and kill. Yang Yi glanced at her and gazed at Nanjing. The latter clenched her fists. I'll annihilate this world with you. Yang Yi roared with laughter. Good. All right. As soon as he finished speaking, his figure shot toward the distance. At this moment, a wave of monstrous slaughter intent appeared. Kill. The origin world wanted Snowy to repair this world, but as far as Yang Yi was concerned, anyone who dared to harm Snowy had to pay 100-fold. Monstrous slaughter intent swept toward the surroundings. Meanwhile, Arya was still hammering the bridge madly. Arya's face was icy cold, and the evil and vicious aura she emanated was growing denser. At the same time, the box within Chi Bidian's bamboo house started to tremble. Snowy returned to the primordial pagoda and went to the ascension platform. She sat on it and closed her eyes slowly while clenching her paws. A long time passed before her lips parted a little. While she didn't make a sound, but based on the way her mouth had moved, she should have said, "Show! Show!" Outside the primordial pagoda, the entire origin world was in chaos. Utter chaos. Yang Ye's slaughter domain and slaughter intent were too terrifying. Practically none below the Destiny realm could resist it. Even ordinary Destiny realm experts couldn't resist Yang Yi. After all, while he wasn't at the Destiny realm, his slaughter intent was at the Destiny realm. Coupled with his own terrifying strength and executor, it could be said that ordinary Destiny realm experts had no advantage in battle against Yang Yi. At this moment, Yang Yi could kill Destiny realm experts on his own. As for those beneath the destiny realm, it could be said that if the experts on par with the divine abode's master didn't interfere, then Yang Yi was like a tiger pouncing into a flock of sheep right now. He could do as he pleased. Of course, the young girl hammering the bridge couldn't be overlooked either. If she was allowed to continue, the entire bridge would be turned to ash. She had the ability to accomplish that. Of course, their main enemy was Chi Bidian. If they couldn't kill her, then killing Yang Yi and the others would make no difference. After all, Yang Yi and the others could do as they pleased because Chi Bidian was keeping the other experts at bay. Yang Yi and the others could be crushed in an instant once she was gone. In the air, Mr. Jing sized up Chi Bidian and said, "Your strength is shocking. None of us here has the ability to fight you on our own. So, you don't mind if we join forces against you, right?" Chi Bidian shook her head. "I don't. It'll only be a little interesting if you do." Mr. Jing nodded slightly, glanced at the surroundings and said, "I know all of you are proud people. However, I'm sure you've witnessed how strong she is. Of course, if any of you think that you can defeat her in single combat, you can step forward now, and we'll give you a chance to do that." Single combat. The surroundings remained very silent. Single combat? No, none of them could ever fight Chi Bidian on their own. However, Chi Bidian suddenly gazed at the desolate emperor. "Aren't you going to try?" The desolate emperor shook his head. "I really want to. However, it's pointless for me to join in right now. Moreover, I'm not foolish enough to help the Eternal Kingdom and Origin World." Chi Bidian nodded, and then she gazed at the divine abode's master and the others. "Then bring it." Mr. Jing pushed his right hand forward, and there was a thread in his grasp. A violet gold thread. Chi Bidian frowned slightly at the sight of this. "Violet dimensional threads. I didn't expect you to really be from my era. Moreover, you're not an ordinary expert from then either." Mr. Jing grinned. "I'm no one before Senior Chi." As soon as he finished speaking, he tapped his finger forward, and the thread flashed. Hiss! A moment later, a huge expanse of space in the sky underwent a change. It was covered in the threads. Or to be more precise, the threads had embedded themselves in space. Mr. Jing smiled. "Senior Chi, your strength is shocking, so destroying these threads won't be difficult for you at all. However, based on your current strength, exhausting too much strength and time on these threads will probably be disadvantageous to you." Chi Bidian glanced at the surroundings and smiled. "You don't want me to obliterate the space here. It's fine. I'll just avoid doing that." She gazed at Mr. Jing and the others. "Didn't you want to kill me? What are you waiting for? Bring it. Bring it." Chi Bidian's smile still remained on her face. Mr. Jing nodded slightly. "Then allow me to lead the charge." He took a step forward, and it was like the descent of a myriad mountains. The space around Chi Bidian shook, and then it started to compress in layers. Compression of space. Chi Bidian glanced at the space around her and grinned. "You used the violet dimensional threads to fortify the space here to restrict my ability while improving your own. Needless to say, it's a very good idea. Unfortunately, you're too weak." Chi Bidian clenched her left fist and slammed it forward. Bang! The space around her started to shake violently. A wave of powerful energy obliterated the space around her. At this moment, Mr. Jing's face was quite unsightly. Chi Bidian was too strong. So strong that he couldn't suppress her at all. He didn't dare try his luck and gazed at the surroundings instead. "Help me seal her!" "Seal!" Suddenly, a voice resounded. "Why aren't we killing her?" It was the Soul Sect's master. He wished for Chi Bidian's death the most. Because once she was dead, Yang Yi would have no one to rely on, and if that happened, he could kill Yang Yi. The enmity between Yang Yi and the Soul Sect was simply irreconcilable. Or it should be said that the enmity between Yang Yi and the joint forces of the Soul Sect and Eternal Kingdom was irreconcilable. Mr. Jing glanced coldly at the Soul Sect's master. "Kill her? Even Destiny couldn't kill her. So how will you? Kill her?" No. Mr. Jing had never considered killing Chi Bidian. An existence like her was impossible to kill, or it should be said that she wasn't someone they could kill. Even if she wasn't at her prime, even if she'd sealed off some of her strength, and even if she was severely injured, she wasn't someone they could kill. Even though he was from the same era as her, it was like the difference between Yang Yi and many others in the same realm of cultivation as well. They were from the same era as Yang Yi, but they weren't on the same level. Seal her. Mr. Jing had planned to seal Qi Bidian from the very beginning. Of course, just his own strength was entirely incapable of accomplishing that. But he wasn't alone right now. A moment later, countless formidable auras appeared in the space around Qi Bidian. Once this energy appeared, the trembling space around Qi Bidian gradually calmed down. Moreover, the threads embedded in the space around her started to shrink in her direction. Besides that, at least 4 domains appeared around her. The desolate emperor clicked his tongue and grinned. The water domain, soul domain, temporal domain, and, what is that? I've never seen it before. There was a great amount of interest in the desolate emperor's eyes. The spiritual domain. Qi Bidian spoke indifferently. It's a domain formed by one who cultivates in the spirit. The domain uses spiritual energy at its foundation and exerts tremendous mental pressure on others. It should be said that it suppresses the enemy's spirit so that the enemy will fall into deep sleep. It can kill without anyone noticing its presence. Just the slightest mistake may cause one to just die without making a sound. The desolate emperor gazed at her. You make it sound so formidable, but you don't seem to be affected at all. Qi Bidian replied indifferently. Even the will of the heaven Tao couldn't harm me. A mere spiritual domain is too weak. The desolate emperor nodded slightly. You're amazing. He moved aside as he spoke. Qi Bidian didn't fight back, but the space around her and those threads were shrinking at an increasingly slower pace. Moreover, more and more energy was surging at Qi Bidian. Qi Bidian, who was at the center of it all, glanced to the right, and it was completely empty. She moved her gaze away and looked down. Down below, Arya was still ceaselessly hammering the bridge, and every strike of hers would cause the bridge to shake. Moreover, she'd destroyed around 3 kilometers of the bridge by now, and she was still doing it. The people of the origin world would naturally not allow her to continue. It didn't take long for the boundless water beneath her to roil, and then a colossus emerged from the water. A powerful aura instantly locked onto Arya. Arya stopped and gazed at it. Its true appearance couldn't be discerned clearly because it was enveloped by boundless water. The water was actually armor around it. A thick armor. Arya's fists suddenly transformed into claws. She walked toward the colossus while icy coldness filled her eyes. Boundless icy coldness. She was furious. And she had gone berserk. Snowy and Yang Yi were her loved ones. They were the closest to her. Especially Snowy. Snowy and her were so close they could eat the same Tonghulu. It could be said that Snowy wasn't just Yang Ye's reverse scale. Snowy was Arya's reverse scale too. Arya charged forward. Hiss! 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 Sharp and ear-piercing sounds of something being torn open resounded. The thick armor of boundless water was like paper before her claws, and she cut through it with ease. After that, she opened her mouth and made a biting motion in its direction. It was a very amusing scene, because Arya was too small. Her mouth was naturally small as well, yet she was trying to bite it. Many started laughing when they witnessed this. However, it only took a moment for their smiles to stiffen, because the colossus let out a shrill and miserable cry. Moreover, it was shrinking rapidly. Arya was eating it alive. She was eating the colossus alive. She ate energy, the energy within it. Of course, she ate its flesh too, and she was eating it raw. The colossus could only let out shrill and miserable cries on the spot. It wanted to resist, but it couldn't move at all. It was being suppressed. The desolate emperor's eyes narrowed slightly. Bloodline suppression. Interesting indeed. She's actually able to suppress a demon beast that's stronger than her. The demon beast was a Destiny Realm expert, but Arya had suppressed it. She was just at the Lord Realm. Qi Bidian grinned. Your bloodline energy is finally awakening a little? Meanwhile, Yang Yi had started to slaughter madly, and the entire origin world was filled with monstrous slaughter intent. Now, countless had lost their lives beneath his blades. He killed anyone he saw. He'd gotten addicted to the slaughter. There was just one thought in his mind now. Kill. But it didn't take long for a strand of silver light to flash. Bang! An explosion resounded, and Yang Yi was blasted over 1 kilometer away. A moment later, 6 figures appeared near Yang Yi. They were led by a saber-wielding old man, the sect master of the Demon Blade sect, Guemo, a Destiny Realm expert. The others behind him were Destiny Realm experts too. All of them were part of the powers in the origin world. Guemo glanced coldly at Yang Yi. You've gone mad with slaughter. You're no different than an animal. And today is the day your life will come to an end. As soon as he finished speaking, he was about to attack. However, a fluffy little fellow appeared on Yang Ye's shoulder. Snowy. Snowy glanced coldly at Guemo, and then she looked to the side and opened her mouth. A word came from her, but it was soundless. Show.